Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the One Fear Per Year podcast. I have a guest on who we have a bit of a time difference, and you guys aren't going to believe this, but he is up at 4 a.m. Sam Penny, thank you so much for joining me today.
Janice, it's great to be here. Early bird catches the worm. You know how it goes.
I know. Well, then when I asked you about it, you're like, well, where I live on the Sunshine Coast, or is it Sunshine?
The Sunshine Coast, yeah.
The Sunshine Coast, like it's a thing that everybody wakes up really early like that and is out running and you're going to go to the gym and do all this stuff. So, right off the bat, what a great way to live life, to just be up and at 'em and doing things that are good for your physical, mental, spiritual well-being. So, well done on that end.
Thank you very much. I feel like I'm winning already.
Yes, exactly. And that inspires me, I will be honest, because I do tend to be a little on the lazy side in the morning where it takes me a while to really get up and going. When I was training for like the marathon that I did like a decade ago now, I remember when you go with a group, you're always up pretty early because you're running long distances and you kind of have to. So it's a good thing to be a part of a group like that.
Yeah, certainly is. You need to be accountable.
Yes. And I want to talk to you all about this because on your LinkedIn, I was reading about you, and I know we're going to get along great. You are a coach for the brave. And let's start there. Tell us a little bit about how that began.
Yeah, look, I've gone out and I've run companies for the last 25 years and had various forms of success, but I've always ventured into areas that I've never been in, never had history in a particular industry or anything like that. But also on the sporting side, I've always gone out and just tried new things. And I guess it's this curiosity of what does that feel like? And it's a great, almost like a Venn diagram of understanding what my skill set is, understanding where my curiosity lies, and how can all that come together, but also recognizing that we only have one life, Janice. And we have to make the most of it. We can't just sit on the couch and doom scroll. We need to always be out there challenging ourselves and conquering the fears that we all have, regardless of who you are. We all have fears of some sort. And what I do with all of my clients is get them to step outside their comfort zone, get them to conquer their fears. And it's not so much, I guess, conquering their fears, it's accepting that there's going to be fear in what they do. But how do you address it? How do you name that fear? And yeah, for example, it might be, I'm afraid of public speaking, but I'm going to do this anyway. And when you're able to name a fear and accept that it's going to be part of the journey, you can really then start to address it a great deal more.
Yes. And how were you a fearful child or teenager, or were you always kind of in this mentality of I'm going to be curious about life, I'm going to walk through fear? How did that journey begin for you?
Yeah, interesting. At school, I was a bit of a nerd, but also I was the sporty kid. But the sports that I always did were very much solo kind of sports. I remember when I was 13 years old and I was watching TV and I saw this race up a mountain, and it's a scramble mountain. They'd race up to the top of this mountain. There'd be helicopters following them. There's flares going off as the runners went past each checkpoint, and then they'd effectively race back down this mountain, and they would tumble down the mountain. And watching this on TV, and I just thought, wow, that's cool. I wonder what that would be like. And I'm not a runner. I've got short, stumpy legs. I run like a wombat, and but I just thought I want to go and try that. But at the same time, I remember things like public speaking gave this huge sense of fear. I hated getting up in front of the English class and having to recite or give a speech or doing debating, those kinds of things. And it's almost like a full circle moment where now I do so much media, I do so much public speaking. I gave a TEDx talk. This is perhaps I'm going to fast forward a little bit to when I gave a TEDx talk about 2 years ago. I have never felt so much fear in my life than preparing for this TEDx talk and getting up on stage in front of hundreds of people and giving my talk. And I felt this huge imposter syndrome in the room where we'd basically train every weekend with all the other speakers. There were people who were saving lives. There were people who were inventing these amazing medical devices, and people who are raising money for sick kids and really trying to give people a much greater life. And my company at the time sold cheese. And with that, I know it's sort of it's how do I you can understand my imposter syndrome. How does cheese fit in with everything that all these other amazing people were doing? But what my company did, particularly through COVID, was we really saved thousands of businesses throughout Australia, small mum and dad businesses, and it was just amazing. But being put in the spotlight and put up on that stage and with these people, it was such a fearful thing. And this fear lasted for probably about 3 or 4 months as we went through all the training. And if you've ever done a TEDx talk, man, it is so hard. But you get up there, and I recognized in myself that, Sam, you've earned the place to be up on this stage. And yeah, these other people are amazing, but they're feeling the same thing as what you are. You need to get up there. You need to, bite the bullet, because think about the good that you've done and how your message can further benefit people right around the planet. And so as a kid, I was so fearful of public speaking, but it's something that I've really conquered just through doing it more and more and more. And I still have fear. Even just speaking to you, Janice, I always get nervous about doing an interview. But I know that by sharing my stories and my journey and my experiences, I know that it can have great benefit to a lot of other people.
Absolutely. And so you named it, you named the fear, and then you basically reframed it or switched your self-talk from that negative, you're not good enough, your thing's not as amazing or cool or whatever the thought is, to a positive leaning self-talk, and accept kind of that it's going to be hard, that you're going to feel those feelings of fear, but that, hey, I'm going to give it my all and I do deserve to be here. So I think those are some great steps for other people when they face their own fears. And not only that, didn't you find that it gave you empathy when you're coaching others to be like, I know exactly how that feels. I'm with you.
100%. When you can put yourself in the shoes of that other person that you're talking to, when you understand what they're going through, when you recognize in yourself the fear that they have. I'll give you another example. And this was an extremely scary moment for me. A few years ago, I did this thing called an ice mile. So you swim in water which is just above freezing. The water was 3.9 degrees. Who knows what that is in Fahrenheit? It's just bloody cold. Basically, I give you an idea of how cold this water was. Consider an esky full of ice, and there's one beer left at the bottom, and you plunge your hand down into the bottom of that esky to try and find that last beer, and everything goes numb and it stings and it hurts. That's how cold the water was. And on the first day, I had to do a 1 kilometer trial uh, basically to make sure that it was safe for me to do this swim the next day, the mile-long swim. And whilst I was doing this swim, there was ice on the water, and I was swimming along, and I had these three moments where I started to get really dizzy. And I was looking up at my support paddler, this little guy called Wyatt, and looking up at him, and I said in my mind, if I blank out, there is zero chance of him saving me. So I just kept going. I kept pushing. Patches of breaking through ice in this lake here in Australia. And yeah, it actually does get cold in some parts of Australia. It's why we call them the snowy mountains. And at the end of it, we went back to our accommodation that night and we're having a bit of a debrief. And this guy said to me, he said, Sam, I saw three people die doing this last year over in Europe. I was going, why are you telling me this? And uh, and then we're talking about all of this, and I could not sleep that night. The next morning, we woke up, and I had my kids there as well. And I just thought, this is so stupid. What am I doing? Why? Just think about what you're trying to do, risking your life, and just imagine how devastating it would be if something really bad happened in front of your kids. And I'm in the car preparing, trying to warm up, getting all my, my swim cap and my goggles because it's only in a pair of Speedos and that's it. And I'm nervous as hell. It starts to snow. I'm right below the snow line on the mountains. All of a sudden, the sun came out and it was this absolutely blissful moment of recognizing that I've done the work. I've done all the training. I've sat in ice for half an hour every second day up to my neck. And I hopped out, walked out, and did this 1 mile swim and finished it. And it was such an interesting moment to go through where I was so fearful, not just fearful for my life, but fearful for the people around me having, what if something bad happens? But then this moment of realization that, come on, Sam, you've done the work. You've done everything to make yourself safe. Just get out there and do it. And I did it. It was, I still look back and just go, yeah, I'll never do that one again.
I know that feeling, and that really is amazing. Literally just 2 days ago, I went on a hike with my family and we walked down to this like river lake thing and we got kind of hot, so we're like, I was thinking, oh, I'm gonna go in the river. And I stepped my feet in, and it's probably not even very cold at all, but to me, it starts hurting. I mean, anybody that's done that, that's impressive to be able to swim in that for that amount of time. But I love how you said that you trusted yourself, that you put in the work, that you had trained for this, because that could have been something very foolish to do had you just, jumped in, never trained, never prepped for it, and then go and try to do something like this. But you had put in the work and you then decided, I'm going to trust myself and the people around me. So, congratulations. When was this that you did that?
Oh, that was 2019. And, not every great thing ends with success, Janice. Uh, and another time, and, you know, people like myself going out to do these big things, you think it's always going to be successful. And a big fear that a lot of people have is that they're going to fail. They're going to fail in public. They're going to fail just to themselves. What are people going to think of me? How my friends going to react? And that's always a big fear. Jumping up on stage, are people going to laugh at me? Are people going to think I look stupid? Whatever it is. And so much of this conversation is in our mind. In 2019, I was the first person to attempt to swim the English Channel in winter. And Not one person on the planet had ever stood on the shores of England looking out in December. You would understand how cold December can get in the Northern Hemisphere. It's bloody cold for someone coming from Australia in summer. But nobody had ever done that. And again, I'd put in the work and I stood on the shores, and it was 4 a.m. It was pitch black. The air temperature was only 6 degrees, just above freezing, and the water wasn't much warmer. Again, I was just in a pair of Speedos, swim cap, and goggles. And looking out, and the water's just lapping at the shore. And I took that first step into the English Channel, knowing that not one person on this planet, what, 8 billion people, had ever taken that next step. And I took that next step and I felt so calm and I felt so great knowing that I had never taken that, that nobody on this planet out of 8 billion people. And it was such a privilege to take this next step. And the English Channel, it's 34 kilometers, 21 miles. I got 3 hours 20 in, and I could recognize that hypothermia was starting to kick in. The water was extremely rough. I knew that it was going to be a 12-hour swim that day. And I started to think about my kids again and just starting to think, look, I could keep going. I could get to probably 7 hours, but if I stop now at 3 hours 20, it's going to be the same outcome. I started. And that's the most important thing, that I started. And yeah, when I finished and I pulled out and, pulled the pin, I was really upset. I was just sad. I felt like I had failed. And I got back to my accommodation. I had a bit of a cry because I put so much work into this. But the thing was that all of a sudden, I had about 1,000 messages from around the world that came in. I had people in the US showing the cold lake that they went and hopped in for a couple of minutes. And just the outpouring of support of people who recognized that this wasn't a moment of failure. It was a moment of, I guess, bravery and just giving something a go. And not everything has to end in success. People aren't thinking what you're thinking, how they are going to think. People aren't thinking, oh, you're stupid, you look dumb, you're a terrible public speaker, all those kinds of negative talks that we always have in our mind. But when you actually do something and you do fail, people are generally really supportive. And it was such a great lesson for me knowing that I can push myself to the point where I can't succeed, but I had a go. And when you have a go, you're really going to prove to yourself that, you know, it's not that bad. People are really supportive. And if you think that people are focused on you, they're actually not. They really, we have this great ability to create conversations in our mind, which is such negative talk. But in actual fact, the real negative talk is always in our mind, and other people either aren't really taking notice, or they're really supportive because you gave it a go.
Absolutely. And bravo for, first of all, attempting that and then also switching your mindset around that, because you are the man in the arena doing the thing. And I fully agree with you. The outcome really doesn't matter so much as truly the journey and what happens inside each of us as we transform through attempting something and failing, or attempting something and succeeding. Whatever it is, that journey truly refines us and shapes us and grows us, as you know. Oh my goodness, I could talk to you for so long, and we're almost out of time, but really quickly, Is there anything, this is the One Fear Per Year podcast, because I believe in doing at least one thing every year that really pulls you out of your comfort zone. Is there anything in the next year that you have on the horizon as far as a challenge, something difficult that you're walking through, or something recently that you've just done?
Or that's always a loaded question with me. So what I do is I am always trying to get fit and get fitter, pick up new skills. And so what I do is get fit, and then when I get to a certain level of fitness, I get these little sparks, these little ideas. And what am I going to do next? Because you always need to be ready for the next adventure. You always need to build your skill set or build your fitness or whatever it is. And so I've just come up with this idea, which I call the Tassie Try. Down in Tasmania, I want to swim the Derwent River. It's 34 kilometres, 21 miles, and I want to do this all unsupported. So I then want to ride to this place called Cradle Mountain, which is about 280 kilometres away, which is this beautiful piece of wilderness in remote Tasmania, and then do what's called the Overland Track, which is about 50 miles. And I want to do this all unsupported. I want to tow my bike in the water on a raft. I want to carry all my gear on the bike and then do this thing. And I'm nicknaming it the Tassie Try. No one's done it before, and I just see this as a great opportunity to see how far I can push myself. I love other people to have a go at it, and what a great way to see Tasmania.
Oh, Sam, Penny, you are amazing. I cannot wait to follow your journey, uh, follow all the adventures that you're going to be on in the future. And one last question. No right or wrong answer. I just ask everybody, for you, if there is an opposite word from the word fear, one other word that it's kind of like exact opposite, for you, what would that word be?
Start. It's the first word that came into my mind, start. Regardless of how you're feeling, regardless of what fear you have, just start. Just start today. Just take one step. And every single step is a step of progress, regardless of how big it is.
There you go. Everybody, thank you so much for listening. Go out there, be brave, and take that next best step. We will see you next time.